What's an audit trail? The best software ever. Another old guy story, apologies for length. Long ago, I was a junior manager in a tech support/service organization for a mid-sized computer company. We were going through a rapid expansion and our service techs were getting busier and busier. We had no automated call tracking or parts usage system, and it was getting more and more difficult to keep track of everything. So the various managers got together and decided to ask corporate for permission to purchase a software suite that one of them was familiar with. None of them really knew how programming such a system would work. They were mostly older guys who came out of the old hardware is hardware, software is software, and the two don't mix environment. The vendor for the chosen product was a small company in the area I was based in, so a demo was scheduled while all the managers were in town for a meeting. The owner of the company showed with a portable PC. Remember those luggable computers, looked kind of like a sewing machine in its case? So we all gathered around the tiny CRT display built into the PC and the guy demoed his product. The vendor had started the product as a cheap system for appliance repair businesses, but it could be adapted easily for computers and peripherals. It would do everything we needed it to do. Each piece of customer equipment would be tagged with a unique asset number by our field techs, who would forward this info to their regional office. Each office would hire a dispatcher/receptionist person who would enter all the information. Each customer could have multiple locations, with a default tech assigned. Each location would have a list of all installed equipment. It was going to be great. It took months to get all the data collected and entered, plus our spare parts database had to be created. We had a large variety of peripherals, each with a separate set of spare parts, plus multiple spare parts locations, so this took a long time as well. Finally, we were ready to go live. Each office had an IBM XT clone with a 4-way serial card since the OS we were using supported multiple users, so our parts clerks could have a terminal in their stockroom while the PC with the console was at the dispatcher's desk. The PCs had their standard 5.25-inch floppy drives, which we were to back up each system daily. You can imagine how that worked out. And things fell apart from day one. The systems were so slow it was not possible to enter a service call in real time. Went something like this: customer calls and says they have a problem to report. Dispatcher switches to the correct menu for entering a call. It could take 2 to 3 seconds to change from one menu to another and there were no shortcuts. Dispatcher had to exit to the top level, then drill down. Dispatcher would ask customer for asset number, customer would provide number, dispatcher would enter number. The systems were so slow that the dispatcher would finish typing in the number before anything displayed on the screen. If the dispatcher had hit enter to do the lookup, and there was typo, the system would grind for 10 to 15 seconds before returning an error. So the dispatchers got in the habit of entering the numbers, waiting for 10 seconds for the display to refresh, then moving to the next screen. Entering the reported problem had the same screen delay issue. Creating a single service call would take over 3 minutes since each lookup or menu change had this 10 to 15 seconds delay. Usually customers would not call in until they had 4 or 5 calls to open, unless it was an emergency, since they knew they'd be on the phone for a while. Meanwhile, the dispatcher was getting other calls and having to tell other customers that they'd call them back. Needless to say, customers were ticked off since we had bragged about this system, and now they were on the phone for ages waiting, or being told to call back, or please provide a callback number. The dispatchers were really frazzled since everyone was getting shirty with them over the amount of time things took. Our techs were bugged also since they couldn't close a call over the phone since the dispatchers were backed up. Then entire deal was clearly unworkable. Dispatchers had to take down service requests on paper. Enter the information offline, call customers back with the call numbers, page the techs to dispatch the calls, sometimes having to have the tech wait on hold while dealt with a customer. A wild bunch of people were wasting a lot of time since we introduced our automated system. A bunch of discussion went on above my pay grade, but our corporate MES team got roped into investigating things. These guys had experience with the OS we were using since they supported the company's manufacturing system and it ran on the same OS. They got a copy of the source code from the vendor, who probably had never sold his product to an outfit our size. Our MES guys said to pick someone from the service organization to interface with them and they'd fix it if they could. I got picked to be the project manager and flew out to the head office to meet with the MES guys. First off, I got an earful about how the parts tracking system was completely unworkable. It had no audit function at all. Parts could be changed from one location to another without any kind of log transaction. There was also a feature that if a parts clerk was looking up an item, and found the quantity available was incorrect, he could use a hotkey to drop into a database editor and just change the quantity on the fly. So the MES guys basically said they were going to have to rewrite a ton of code to make this package comply with basic standards. The field service folks were okay with this. No one really understood or cared about the inventory side of the issue, It was the speed issue that was killing us. The MES manager just hand-waved this issue. It was a hardware problem. They couldn't rewrite the code to make it faster. We had to buy better, faster PCs. He gave me the contact info for a consult/integrator for the OS we were using in my home location and just said to call them. It turned out he was correct. I met with the consultant. They put together a 386-base system with a fancy disk controller for us to test. I spent a day with them installing a copy of our code and databases and did a side-by-side comparison. The speed was greatly improved and we now had a solution. We were up against a classic sunk cost issue. We had invested a bunch of money in the code, plus hundreds of hours entering customer data. No one wanted to walk away from that. So we begged the gods of corporate finance and they allowed us to purchase a total of 5, I think, systems. The MES guys bought an additional system for themselves since had to write and proof all the stuff we were asking them to do. There were a bunch of other tweaks we had to implement to make the system usable, but at least we had something that didn't drive people insane. I learned a very valuable lesson from the entire experience. No one had actually sat down and written out actual specifications for what we needed. It was, we used this product in my last job, and it kind of worked, so let's buy that. And don't cheap out on the hardware. Story 2. An old hat, check your cables people. Been lurking even back when I was doing this job a few years ago, figure I should contribute my own dumb story, here goes. I've been fighting back and forth for months on an old legacy computer we had hooked up to our public health hearing test booth. Every time we replaced the damn thing the system would refuse to talk to the booths and we were back at square one using the legacy that at most had another year left to chug on the HD. My public health team's been back and forth with the higher level folks because once it goes past department specific it's out of our wheelhouse and they've been angling to have that computer replaced for the better part of 2 years. Finally they get back to us with the software from the higher office that is more than a dozen versions more up to date than the legacy one that we're chugging along with. Unsurprisingly, the version we were using was pre-network update and pre-zone security network architecture. Our network security team hated working with us. I install the new PC for the 3rd time and get port security to stop panicking, then run the software on the hearing booth. Doesn't detect the booth. Spend an hour with the public health tech who dabbles on the side with PC gaming with me. No dice, I have to rip the setup up again and back in with the legacy computer while he reports back to the higher level folks. This goes on for about 2 days until finally he tells me he's got the IT department for the software and hardware on the line with him. Having planned around this, and we reinstall computer again and take another crack at it. The rep is a patient woman and even she's getting confused on why the thing isn't talking to the booth, until it hits her to ask us to check the cable. I check the PC side while the tech chases it from the booth. Eventually we meet in the middle and lo and behold there's a switch built into the cable hidden behind the desk panel. He didn't know about it and I didn't know about it, but his supervisor, as we later discover, knew about it and toggled it off without telling us, which also explained why we didn't run into this problem with the legacy computer. Thoroughly baffled and embarrassed, I switch the thing on and we run the test. The tech puts on the headset and he gets a tone. It lives. I can feel the rep's disappointment/befuddlement and my cheeks are warm as I hand off to the tech for calibration. I head back upstairs and wait for him to message me later letting me know I can close the ticket out. Got roasted by my coworkers for that one for a month when our CIO saw my write-up about the situation.